Okay. Welcome back. Let's take a look at how you can set up your own file sharing site with Seafile on an Amazon EC2 instance. So, of course, first thing I need to do is launch a new instance. We'll go ahead and get one set up exactly the way that I want. I'm going to call it File Server, easy name. We're going to put it on Ubuntu 24, and we're not going to choose x86, we're going to choose ARM. The reason I want to do that is so that I can use Amazon's Graviton instances, which are probably the best price for performance that you can get on AWS. So I want to go with one of those. We're actually going to go for a T4G.large. This is probably bigger than we need. We could scope this down, but it's less than 10 cents an hour to run, so perfect for an experiment like we're about to do. All right, so we've named it File Server. We've chosen Ubuntu 2024. We have chosen the ARM architecture, and we've picked out a T4G.large that we can use. I need to choose a key pair so that I'll be able to log into it over SSH or use the Systems Manager tool to log in. For network settings, I already have a VPC, a public VPC setup that I want to use. I just need to make sure that I choose a public subnet, which I will do. I'll choose US West 2A public 1, this subnet here. And I want to assign a public IP. We'll actually assign both IPv4 and v6 addresses. And I have a security group already in this VPC called Web, which opens up, the standard web ports 80 and 443, which we're going to need because Seafile is going to be running as a web service. Obviously, since this is going to be a file server, I want a slightly larger disk. I'm just going to go for 128 gigabytes. I like powers of 2, so that's why I'm doing that. And I'll choose GP3, the newest and highest performance general purpose SSD type. Another thing I like to do, although it's not required, is I like to encrypt all my disks. So I'm going to open up Advanced here, and we'll go to click on this disk name here, this guy. What this will do, if you click on that, is it will actually expand out the disk settings for your root disk here. One of which is whether or not you want to encrypt it. We'll say yes. We'll go with EBS key. That's the KMS key I like to use for encrypting my disks. And let's not delete this on termination. We might want to leave the disk after we shut down the instance. Who knows? We might need it later for something, right? So we've got everything set up now the way we want. You could also go in and maybe assign an instance profile here. I'm going to use this limited profile. This just allows the instance to communicate with Systems Manager and send metrics to CloudWatch and that sort of thing. I have another profile that's for instances that need to talk to all kinds of services like Transcribe and Lex and S3. This instance doesn't need any of that. It's going to be self-contained. Let's keep it secure and just use this limited IAM instance profile that gives sort of the minimum required permissions. I don't need to adjust anything else here. I could put in a user data. I could put a script here in the user data field, maybe to get the instance to do some setup steps when it first boots up, but we're going to do everything by hand today. So I'm going to skip that, and now I just need to click over here where it says Launch Instance. So we'll click on that, and that should start up our instance, assign it a public IP, get everything ready. So now that this public IP address is assigned, I want to jump over to Route 53 and actually set up an A record that points to this instance, because later on I'm going to go apply for an SSL certificate, and I want the SSL certificate to map onto a domain name, like an official name, like something.jeremypeterson.com. So let's make that happen. Route 53, we'll open that up in a new tab. Grab this IP address. If you left click on this little box here, that actually copies the IP to the clipboard. Lots of fields in the terminal have that, which is actually a really nice feature, right? They have these little boxes where you can click on stuff, so I'm going to do that. I've got a couple of hosted zones here, too, because I actually have two websites that I run. The primary site is this one, jeremypeterson.com. If you visit that, it's actually just like a little self-intro page / blog. There's not a lot going on over there, but I use it a lot for these videos. Let me click on Create Record. We're going to make a new A record. We'll call it File Server. It's going to be an A record, and it's going to point to the IP address of our instance. There are other fancier things we could do. We could stick the instance behind, a CDN. We could use CloudFront. I'm not going to do any of that. We're just going to have a straight A record that points directly to the machine. Oh, look at that. Actually, I forgot about this. This won't happen for you, but I have a Lambda function set up. Whenever a new instance boots, I automatically create an A record for it that points to the instance's name from the EC2 tags, right? So there's a tag attached to that instance that gives it the name file server, right? So if I were to go down to tags, there's a tag here called name, and it points to file server. Because of that, I have a Lambda function that triggers when the instance comes up that actually creates an A record for me. So if I go look through these, maybe if I sort them by type, yeah, fileserver.jeremypeterson.com, it's already there. So it went ahead and made that for me, which is very handy. It's great to use Lambda functions to sort of automate some setup for you. It's always a good idea. Okay, so now that the instance is up, what do we need to do to actually set it up to run Seafile? Well, I need to connect. First of all, we'll go to Session Manager. We'll use Session Manager for that. It might take a little bit before we can actually log in. Once Session Manager is ready, then we will be able to run apt-get, update, upgrade, all that good stuff. Okay, good, now it's ready. Click Connect. We're gonna log in, run the usual Ubuntu 24 updates. And once that's done, we can start installing Docker, which we are going to need in order to run Seafile. The standard deploy for Seafile assumes that you're going to use Docker to run everything. So we'll do sudo su ubuntu first to switch over to the Ubuntu user. Okay, great. We are now the Ubuntu user. So now we do sudo apt-get update, which should use the local Amazon provided package cache. You can see it is doing that, which means that updating is super fast. Sudo apt-get upgrade -y. Looks like we have to upgrade a couple of things here. So actually more than I expected. No big deal. We just wait for those updates to run. A lot of system tools being updated here, including looks like Cloud Init. Okay, yeah. So I'm probably going to want to reboot when this is done. A lot of system tools have been touched in this update. Yes, and you can see right here, we are indeed building a new kernel. So definitely going to want to reboot this machine once these updates are done. So we'll wait just a second and then we'll do that. You can see it's running kernel seems to be up to date. That's probably not true. So we're going to do sudo apt-get auto clean, sudo apt-get auto remove just to get rid of any cached packages we don't need, and then we will do a sudo reboot. And we'll come back in a second once the machine is rebooted and then continue. I really want to make sure everything's up to date before I do any other installs. This is just always a good practice. Just make sure everything's up to date before you do anything else. Great, so I've waited a couple of seconds for the machine to come back up. We'll hit connect again, and hopefully this will get us right into Systems Manager. Looks good. Sudo su ubuntu, hit cd to change to the Ubuntu home directory, which is just /home/Ubuntu. I just like to operate from there by default. Okay, next thing to do, and I'm copy pasting this because it's super long. I'm just copy paste this from my blog, which is linked in the description. We need to do a bunch of work to install the official GPG key for the Docker package repo, and then we need to update, run an apt update and a install step to actually go and fetch that. So what we're doing first is adding this GPG key for the Docker repo and running the update. Now that that's done, we can move on to the install step. There's a lot to install. So you need to install all this stuff. Again, this is all in the blog post that's linked to in the description. I go ahead and hit install. It's about 300 megabytes worth of stuff, almost 400 megabytes. We wait for all that to install, and then of course we'll be able to run Docker run hello world and see if it works. What it should do is fetch the hello world Docker container, print out some messages to show that Docker's working. Let's see if that works. So we'll do sudo docker run hello world, and right now we're not in the Docker user group, so you do actually have to be root to run Docker hello world. By the way, it worked. You can see it worked, right? This is what's supposed to print out, so it's working. But we actually want to add our user to the Docker group and then update our session so that we can run without that sudo command. So let's do that. Sudo group add Docker. Okay, it's already there. Good, it should be. Usermod-ag Docker current user, this is an environment variable that will get replaced with our user, which is Ubuntu. Okay, so that's done. New group Docker, that's just going to make the change take effect. So now, if I do Docker run hello world without the sudo, it should work. Okay, it works. And of course, you'll see it's much faster that time because we didn't have to go fetch the container image. It's actually already there, right? So if I run Docker images, you can see that Hello World container was already fetched. Because it was already there the second time I ran Hello World, it's much faster. So I need a couple other things here. It's a good idea when you're running an EC2 instance, at least I think so, to always have the AWS CLI installed. So we'll just go ahead and fetch that. We're going to need unzip to be able to unpack the CLI package. It's a zip file. For whatever reason, the unzip command isn't included by default on Ubuntu, so that's what this was about. I was just installing it. Okay, go ahead and use curl to fetch the AWS CLI package, unzip it, like so. We are then going to want to move that. We won't move it ourselves. We won't move it into the /bin directory ourselves. Instead, we will do this. AWS install. We'll run the install script from the AWS package that we just unpacked. And if I now do AWS version, it should work. And of course, I've got very limited permissions right now. So if I do something like S3LS, it's not going to work. I don't have permissions, but that's fine. We'll just work past that. Now we can actually get to the point where we're ready to set up Seafile. So I'm going to do make dir/p Seafile, just so we have somewhere where we can store all the install stuff, move into that directory. Again, I'm going to copy paste a command from the blog post. Again, the link for that is in the description. This will fetch the latest community edition of Seafile. There's a Docker compose YAML file that already includes everything that we need. I should point out, though, that this file actually moves around sometimes. So if you get an error like this where it says you can't find the file, the workaround for that is just to go to the site and fetch it yourself. It is up there, I promise. It's just sometimes it'll say, hey, I couldn't find it. Right, but it's there. It's just been moved, right? So let me go Google for that real quick. So I'm going to do that on my other monitor, so you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm going to go Seafile Docker install, and that'll give me the correct link to the documentation for deploying Seafile with Docker, and then in there will be instructions for fetching version 11. So what I've just done is pasted this in, which is from their docs, and you'll see it looks like the path has changed just a little bit. Yeah, okay, great. So now we've got that Docker compose file. Fantastic. That gets us, 90% of the way to where we need to be. We might want to change a couple of fields in that file, though. First things first, I'm going to open it up in my favorite text editor, Vim. If you don't know how to use Vim, I'll sort of give you a crash course here. When I hit enter, so I put in Vim and then the file name just now, right? When I hit enter, that opens up the editor. Vim's a little bit confusing for new users. When you first open, you're basically in view mode. You can't actually edit the file directly. Anything you type is going to get treated as a Vim command, essentially. So if I were to hit DD, that means delete a line, right? So that line went away. Whoops. If I hit X, I start deleting characters. Uh-oh. What if I don't want to save any of those changes? What if I want to start over? Well, you'd have to quit. And to quit, what you need to do is enter a colon and Q for quit. That's how you quit. So when you're in command mode, like I'm in right now, colon Q, you can see it shows up in the corner here. Sorry, it's a little hard to see, way down there in the corner. That is what we need to quit. So if I hit enter, it's going to say, hey, there's unsaved changes. Are you sure you want to quit? To say, yes, I really, really want to quit, you do colon Q exclamation point, and then you hit enter. Now, if I go and I do vim docker compose, back in, if I want to edit, I hit I. And you'll see when I do that, I am now in insert mode, right? Again, way down in the corner there. Sorry, it's a little hard to see. We are in insert mode. Whoops, insert mode right here, right? So that means I can start changing things. I can backspace, I can enter to add spaces, I can do all the normal text editor stuff that I'm used to. When I'm done, I'll hit the escape key. I'll hit escape to leave insert mode, go back into command mode, and then I'll show you how to save changes and all that. So a couple things. First thing, there is a line that says Seafile server let's encrypt false. We want to make that true. That should say true. Whoops, sorry, I forgot that I am in insert mode. So I'll just backspace and then type in true, hit escape. And just to make sure I've saved that, I'm going to type colon and W. So colon and W, which is what I've just typed down in the corner here. That means right. So we've now saved our changes, right? It says such and such, so many bytes have been written. That just means our changes are saved. I'm also going to want to uncomment 443 up here, right? So you can, obviously, I actually do want this port to be available because I'm using HTTPS. I don't have to go back into insert mode. I can just hit X, which will comment that in, but you'll notice that that mixed up the alignment a little bit here, and I'm anal about that stuff, so I'm going to hit I for insert and then type a space, line those back up with each other, escape to go back into command mode, :W to write. I know it seems like a lot, but you get used to it. Vim is a wonderful text editor. Once you get used to the difference between command mode and insert mode. Okay, other things we need to do. We need to put a real email address in here for the admin. This is how we're going to log in. So in my case, I'd probably just put my personal email address, jeremydavispeterson@gmail.com. And I have to put in some password for that user. So I guess we'll do, I don't know, super cool password. $123 $. Oh yes, I can feel the security already. Super cool password, $123 $. We'll leave everything else the way it was. We're not going to touch anything else for now. That should do it. So now all I need to do is docker compose up-d. And that should pull in all the container images we need. And in a minute, I will be able to log in to the admin console. So we'll open up another window for that in just a second. Obviously, again, I've got an A record here, so we'll be able to just visit this site and we'll be able to log in with that password, hopefully, if everything worked the way it was supposed to work. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, great. We're pulling everything. It's going to take a minute. Some of these containers are fairly large, and once they're up, we also have to wait for Docker Compose to set up Docker networking, make sure all the containers can talk to each other, all that great stuff. So once that's done, we are in good shape. We're not quite done, though. There's actually one thing that is a little bit annoying about the Seafile Docker setup, which is if you run docker inspect, and I'll link to another blog where I explain how this works, but if you run this crazy command here to inspect all your Docker containers, you'll notice when you look at the restart policy for Seafile that these containers are set up not to restart. So if I shut the server down and start it up later, these containers are not going to start up again on their own. If I reboot the machine, same story. Docker is not going to restart these. I would like it to. I want my server to be robust. I want Seafile to continue working after a reboot or a shutdown. So what do I do to fix that? Well, I'm just going to cheat because right now I only have Seafile containers running. I'm just going to do this. This is going to set all currently running containers to have the restart policy always, which will make them always boot up on their own. So again, if I go back and run that inspect command, they're now set up that they're going to start no matter what. As soon as Docker comes online, these three containers are going to come back up. Okay, let's see if everything works. So we're going to go to fileserver.jeremypeterson.com, hopefully. And it says 502 bad gateway. No big deal. Probably we just need to wait a second. However, I will double check my network settings. It's possible that I messed something up during the network setup. So let's just double check our Docker Compose there, make sure everything looks good. This stuff is okay. Obviously, we probably should have set a better database password than dbdev, but we'll leave it be. Memcache setup looks fine. We have ports 80 and 443 are both, enabled. We set a real email and password. I know what our problem is. This is our problem. We forgot to change the server host name. Should have been fileserver.jeremypeterson.com. That was an issue. So it's listening for connections to the wrong host name. So docker compose down. And we'll shut everything down. Then we'll do docker compose up/d again, or -d, excuse me. Hopefully that will fix things. That should start us listening on the correct location. So let's see if that works for us. Worst case, we'll have to redo some of the setup because we missed that part, but hopefully not. This is the correct server host name now, so we've hopefully fixed that. And we'll see if we can get things back and working here. So I've refreshed a couple times. We're getting a bad gateway error. Again, that could just be because we're waiting for the setup to complete. And yes, it looks like things are now working. So yeah, sorry about that. I messed up the hostname step, so don't forget that. That's important. All right, jeremydavispeterson@gmail.com, right? And of course, let's see, what was my password? Super cool password, $123 I think. Let's take a look. Yeah, that was it. Log in, and let's see if this all works as expected. So I should be able to upload and download files and do all that fun stuff. So let's give that a try. Okay, welcome to Seafile, my library. I think, let's see, there's no files in here, but I can make one. Look at that, I can make new.docx. It'll just make a Word file for me, an empty one, of course. And I can't edit it because I don't have a plugin for that, but I can download. So you'll see it does in fact download that empty file. If I open it up in Word, sure enough, it's going to be an empty blank file. No surprises there. And of course, I could then go upload files as well. So let's test that. In order to keep things super secret, I might edit a little bit here so you can't see what I've got in my downloads folder and all that. So bear with me. So first, I'm going to click on upload, and then I'll choose upload files. All right, and while nobody was looking, I snuck into this test folder, and I've got a little collage image here. I'll double click on that. It'll take just a second here, and then you'll see that that file has been successfully uploaded. I think I can preview images, so let's open that, and it should just be some pictures of me. All right, so that all worked. So there you go. We now have our own encrypted, self-hosted file server in the cloud, and it was like less than 15 minutes of work. Pretty cool. All right, so that's it for this time. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.